Today's video lecture will be reviewing the question, why do we go to school and what is the purpose of education? We will be discussing the short article excerpt from What is at Stake in a Pedagogy of Interruption by Gert Biesta. Gert Biesta is an educational theorist, philosopher, and policy maker who currently works and lives in England and Ireland. He works at the Centre for Public Education and Pedagogy at Maynooth University in Ireland. In this presentation, we will explore the overarching question, why do we have schools? This is a foundational philosophical question because we have to figure out what the purpose of schooling is, because that will inform our benchmarks for knowing if schools are doing their job or fulfilling their obligations to society, as well as the more practical questions of what should teachers be teaching? What type of curriculum should we have? What type of methods of instruction are the best? And what types of student, teacher, and family relationships should exist within schools? How should they be structured? Who should be included, and how? Biesta suggests that there are three general ways of understanding why we go to school. We go to school to gain qualifications in order to obtain a job. Or we go to school in order to socialize ourselves with other people in our society so that we can function within society as adults. And lastly, we go to schools in order to build our own senses of subjectivity, that is, a sense of self and personhood, so that we can exercise and explore who we are as we grow. So, if you think that education is about getting the necessary qualifications to get into a good college or to have a particular type of career, you of course are going to engage in the teaching and learning practices with a particular focus in mind, and that one is one of future focus. That is, you are only interested in the elements of schools that are going to help you be successful in life. You might ask yourself as a student, do I need to know this in order to be an accountant, if that's the job that you've decided that you want to go into? Or do I need to know this in order to get into college? Or I really need to get a good grade on this assignment at any means possible. These types of outward and external focusing goals of education will lead educators to also teach in particular ways. I might not leave space for organic learning or social experiences if I believe that I need to instead instill particular knowledge or skills in students that will allow them to get into colleges or into a particular career. This will also influence the teacher, student, and family dynamic. Conversations will often focus around what is happening in the classroom, both in terms of the content being taught and how it is being assessed, and how well it is serving this criteria for having a student who is qualified to participate as an adult in society, namely in the capitalistic process. Gert Biester wants us to think reflectively. Is this the only way to think about why we go to school? Is it dangerous if we overly focus on this element of schooling as a way of gaining qualifications for future success? And why might it be important to have some of this focus within schools? The second way that we often understand schools as it being a place where students learn how to be with others. That is, that they develop the habits and beliefs conducive to having positive social relationships of people of all ages and learning what the norms are for how to navigate interpersonal relationships and dynamics. In this case, a teacher and student will be focusing on what might be necessary to know or what skills or dispositions are necessary to develop in order for an individual, once they leave school, to be able to successfully fit in and navigate society. You might also see in classrooms the instilling particular values or norms or ways and traditions of a society if the goal is to impart this type of knowledge over time so as to maintain social structures and a social identity. Again, you can see that if we focus on schools as a area and need for socialization, students will be looking for time to socialize. Teachers will be stressing how students should navigate interpersonal relationships, as well as the teachings of societal norms, structures, political, social, cultural, and traditional, and perhaps religious, within the classroom. This, of course, will influence how teachers and students and families interact, where students where families might be expecting feedback on how well their student is transitioning into this classroom and a new social space of schooling that reflects many of the other social structures that they'll navigate as adults. And students will be expecting teachers to help mediate conflicts and support them in developing the skills in order to have productive and healthy relationships moving forward. Now, if we think of schools as focusing on individual development and personhood, then schooling would have a very different focus. In this area of school, you're trying to figure out who you are. And so you might be asking yourself as a student, how is what is happening right now in my classroom or in my school helping me figure out who I am and how I can become and continue to develop into my best self? Are there spaces or opportunities for me to reflect on who I am or to develop my unique characteristics, my interests and my hobbies, my passions? And do I have opportunity to practice and exercise my freedom and agency within the school so that I can develop those dispositions that are going to be necessary as I navigate the world? Again, you would see in a space where school is about figuring out who you are as requiring something very different from teachers. It would look more like individualized instruction, opportunities for self-directed learning. And in terms of family and teacher and student dynamics, you might expect conversations that reflect a teacher's understanding of each individual student and how they are developing and exercising their independence within the classroom, as well as providing opportunities for students to develop their personal agency and subjectivity within the classroom. As we move throughout this course, the goal of schools, why we go to school, and what should ultimately be the aim is going to be a center focus of educational philosophers. Since it's impossible to know what we should be teaching, what the curriculum should look like, what teaching methods are ideal, and how we should assess students if we don't know what we are aiming for. I'd like you to think about what you have been told is the purpose of schools and whether you buy into all or some of those arguments. Is there a purpose beyond school, the three purposes outlined in this mini lecture? Which one do you think schools should focus on most? Are ones currently being focused on too heavily? And are they detrimental to the goals?